You've been listening to the Edie-raether-radio-show on Building Fortunes Radio and the Humongous Radio Network. Better thinking leads to better decisions, and better decisions create better performance. That is the foundation of Edie-raether's groundbreaking Neuroshift's trademark approach. As a behavioral strategist, best-selling author, and expert in the neuroscience of success, Edie helps people interrupt automatic thinking, replace unproductive patterns, and become the boss of their brain. Her newest book, The 3-Second Neuroshift, reveals how a small shift in thought can create meaningful changes in leadership, performance, resilience, relationships, and life. Discover Edie's books, programs, and speaking resources at Edie-raether.com. That's EDIE-RAETHER.com. You can also find the Edie-raether-radio show on Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other major podcast platforms. Now, back to the Edie-raether-radio show. Take it away, Peter.
Hello, everyone. Peter Mingils here. You are listening to the Edie-raether-radio show. My name is Peter Mingils. We put this on the Building Fortunes radio platform as well as everywhere else. You'll find it on Humongous Radio. We also put this on big ones like Amazon's podcasts and, let's see, the other one, iTunes, like what used to be iTunes, now it's Apple's podcast, and we put it also on Spotify and iHeartRadio. We're also posting these now on YouTube and Facebook, and if it looks like Edie's everywhere, it's because she is. So I want the world to meet Edie-raether. She's a really great person, and she wrote another book, and she's just somebody who's super-duper smart, but she's also super-duper nice, and this is our first radio show together. So I wanted her to be able to tell you guys a little bit about her so you can fall in love with her as much as we fall in love with her and the different things that she's working on. She's going to make a big difference in your world. I'm promising in advance. This is going to be one of many radio shows we do with Edie. So, Edie, thanks for being here on your own radio show.
I'm delighted to be here. I love that intro. I love it.
Oh, it's good stuff. Now, we've met a long time ago as a result of a speed networking event. I always like to tell people sometimes the origin of our relationship. I met you on one of Manny Lopez was doing a speed networking event, and Manny's a really good guy with a really good heart. He takes care of foster kids as far as exiting them out of the system, and he's just an overall good guy, and he puts together entrepreneurs. You did a couple of breakouts, and I remember when you were doing your breakouts, I'm like, Edie is like, she's got a lot of knowledge. Like, you can just hear the way she talks. She's been well-educated in a lot of different fields. She's super-duper smart. When she says a sentence, it's really like a story of like decades worth of experience. And I always like kind of enjoyed watching and listening to you and knew that you had a lifetime of experiences and lessons and education. So I reached out to you, and at the right time, you're writing a book. And we're going to talk about that book in this and maybe some other radio show sessions. But I want people to learn how nice and how smart you are. So can you give us a little bit about your background?
Okay. I started out as an occupational therapist, and it was too hard on me to see these young kids that had become quadriplegics and would never move an arm or a leg again. Now, that is changing with some of the modern technology, but I just took it home with me. But psychiatry was a big part of OT. And so I went on and got my master's in clinical counseling and then private practice with about 4 or 5 psychiatrists back in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And that was all about in the mid-'70s. But in 1970, I started out working with the most challenged youth, most at-risk youth in New York City right out of college, and then moved back to Wisconsin just so kids could be with their grandparents and so forth. So I was in private practice, but I started speaking already as soon as I moved back to Green Bay, about 1970. So I am a CSP, Certified Speaking Professional, and I've done thousands and thousands of programs on 5 continents, and including many Fortune 500 companies. So that has always been, it's how I get my dopamine, Peter. And then from the therapy, and I do coaching now, but it's really been pretty focused now then I was a college professor for a while. And then in 1980, I had a talk show on ABC TV and ABC Radio when I moved to Milwaukee. I've had a pretty diversified background, and now I'm pretty much focused on my nonprofit Wings for Wishes Academy.org. And make sure you have academy and not .com.org. And that is where I'm wiring kids for health, happiness, and success. Because, honey, if you listen to the news, this world needs help. And before I leave it, I'm in my 83rd year of life. I got to make a difference. So I'm very committed. I'm working 12, 14 hours a day when most people, almost half my friends have passed, and including my son just 2 weeks ago. And that I'll bring in the 1 second or 3 second moment. But I'm focused on my nonprofit and speaking. I love I told Tory, who I just lost, the stage is my home, and it really is. It is, and I've done a couple TEDx talks, and one of them is brain fitness for kids, cloning the DNA of Einstein. The other is AI and digital dopamine making us numb. And it's pretty scary, Peter, because the average IQ of somebody that's around my age, 70s, 80s, maybe even 60s, is about 15 points higher than the average kid in the United States today. And the countries that are beating us they tend not to be democracies. So I'm very concerned because, let's face it, stupidity cannot support a democracy. So I look at things as the ripple effect of what I do. And it all starts with, children, wiring them for health, happiness, and success. And the reason also is because as a therapist and coach, I've been doing hypnosis for 60 years and brain training. And I'm always undoing and redoing trauma and things that should have been prevented. So I've always, spoken a lot on wellness and prevention. And it's just crazy that, we're always fixing things. People smoke, drink, eat chips and the wrong foods, and then we fix it. We're always reactionary. Let's get ahead of the game. Let's look at what actions and decisions we can make to prevent this. And doesn't that just make more sense? So
it does. That's
kind of how I got where I am. Oh, yeah, and I've written my 8th book, which is the last one. It was just released a couple weeks ago. I guess I keep thinking of more I've done, but I am a best-selling author, and it's not by playing the Amazon game where you spike it for a day. It actually happens to be in China. My first book, Why Cats Don't Bark, is on your soul's code and calling in life, and it is a bestseller in China. And then I wrote Sex for the Soul. It's more on the soul than sex, in case you're wondering. And then Winning. I wanted to know how winners think, what champions do. And so I interviewed. I've got people like Oprah Winfrey, Rosa Parks, and then people that are no-namers but have done phenomenal things growing up on the other side of the tracks. But I was looking for the common denominator. And then I do a lot of corporate consulting. And so Forget Selling is on influence and persuasion, probably more business book. And then Bullying, I have a in-service training program for teachers where they get their CEUs on bullying, Stop Bullying Now. And then I've had so many problems when I build houses with builders. So one is what most builders won't tell you. That's not my usual genre. And then I Believe I Can Fly, which is part of my children's series, ages 3 to 7, where I wire kids. You got to get them before the age of 7. You got to. Because then we shift from the alpha state to the beta state. That's why kids' brains are like sponges, and they're so impressionable, because we're in a slower brainwave state. It changes about age 7. So there's a deeper impression, whether you feed kids with trauma or the good stuff that I feed them with. But I can tell you, you can have a kid that has parents who are in crack cocaine, and you get I Believe I Can Fly in their minds, they could be the next president of the United States in spite of their environment. So that's kind of where I am. And the 3-second Neuroshift, that's just me. It's all coming together. It's my brand. Neuroshifts is my brand. Neuroshifts with Edie. And the 3-second Neuroshift is really about how micro moments, how one micro moment can shift and change everything, your entire destiny. And as you know, Peter, it's not easy. I'm actually writing a eulogy for my son right now, and I'm going to deliver it because I know as a professional speaker, I would never be pleased with anybody else. I just have to get through it. But it was 4th of July, Jackson Hole, Wyoming. It's one of his favorite places. He goes there every few months. And they were ready to go for dinner. And there's, this rock structure where you jump from. And people are jumping all the time, but there are no signs about it being high risk. I probably would have done it too. And because of the lack of awareness, and that's really what I'm also about, awareness, because you can't make the right decision unless you're first aware. But what I think happened is when he dove in, you got to realize people were still skiing out there. Somebody said just a month ago. But it's that real ice water that's underneath. And when you dive in, your heart accelerates, your arteries, your vessels constrict, and it can cause a heart attack. And I think that's what happened. And it's sad because he said to his wife, one more jump, and we'll go. And that was a 3-second decision that I sure wish we could take back. There's no reverse. Death is so finite. There's just no, I lost every dime because I trusted, he was a convicted felon. He got out of jail the day before. And I lost millions. As a single parent, I had made already, probably in my 40s, most of it actually, millions, 4 to 5 million I lost. So I must have made it. And it was hard work. I'm not a trust baby by any means. And I came to North Carolina, which I love, but I went in to sell 2 lots and ended up buying 35 more because people my age kind of grew up at a time where you could, trust people's word, and kind of lost everything. So I'm on one of the best spots on Lake Norman, Peter, but I was living here homeless for 15 months. I had no running water, no flushing toilets, no wired-in electricity. But, my mom always said, look at the bright side, grow where you're planted. And I did. I had nothing, but I had my brain, I had my creativity, and I had a laptop, and there was a pole outside, so I could afford an extension pole, and I could afford, so I wrote my books. And so I think it's an attitude that I know I can bounce, not back, but I bounce forward. But what happened to Tory and what's happening to me now, there's no bouncing back, there's no bouncing forward. It's over. And it's tough. It's the one time in my life that, I can handle anything. With my mindset, nothing can set me back it never has, except now. There is no reverse. So, but what the 3-second Neuroshift, people always say, what is your most important, what was the most important decision or event in your life? And people often say, my graduation, my marriage, my first child. Maybe it was the second or third if you had problems with the first. It's not. The most important moment hasn't happened yet. It's the next decision you make. So that's where I am, and I'm out to change the way the world thinks. One child, one mind at a time, and that's the basis of it. Yep.
Well, we're going to do this. We're going to take a quickie commercial break. You're listening to Edie-raether, and we're going to be right back because I want to be able to explore this story a little bit more and also share with our Building Fortunes Radio listening audience some of the timeliness of all this as well. We'll be right back.
You've been listening to the Edie-raether Radio Show on Building Fortunes Radio and the Humongous Radio Network. Better thinking leads to better decisions, and better decisions create better performance. That is the foundation of Edie-raether's groundbreaking Neuroshift's trademark approach. As a behavioral strategist, best-selling author, and expert in the neuroscience of success, Edie helps people interrupt automatic thinking, replace unproductive patterns, and become the boss of their brain. Her newest book, The 3-Second Neuroshift, reveals how a small shift in thought can create meaningful changes in leadership, performance, resilience, relationships, and life. Discover Edie's books, programs, and speaking resources at edie-raether.com. That's EDIE-RAETHER.com. You can also find the Edie-raether Radio Show on Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other major podcast platforms. Now back to the Edie-raether Radio Show. Take it away, Peter.
And we are back again. Peter Mingils here with Edie-raether. We're talking about her story is just intriguing and fascinating. And for those people listening in, you got to really learn more about Edie. She's been working for decades. She's in her 80s right now, sharp as a tack, and has a lot more to be able to share with other people. But I really want to make sure that people are kind of fully aware of the present situations relative to Tory. So it was July, it's late June, I think, is when I called you originally. I was doing some work with, and still am doing some work with Beat Bob. Beat Bob is a guy who goes into high schools and makes a difference, talking about teenage suicide and drug abuse, and he's a really cool guy, and he deals with cyberbullying and all of those types of things, teen overdoses. And I was accumulating a list of a couple of people that I was planning on talking to, and Edie, your name popped up because of the book Cyberbullying. In the notes that I had made, you had cyberbullying in there, so I'm like, wait a minute, I know Edie, and I know that she could definitely have some impact on the children because she's a great speaker. I always liked when I watched you on Manny's thing, got to call Edie. So I called you. We started speaking about maybe doing some radio shows. I kind of sent you some stuff. And then it was on July 3rd that we had a conversation. We said, let's do it. And then you were going to be maybe taking a day off and going to your other son, and you're in North Carolina because he was building a home, and it was 4th of July. Now, for those people listening in, I'm talking about this year, 2026. I just want people to realize how fresh this is, how it's still evolving, and how you're managing your way through this using all the things that you know, and how we can draw our own stories and parallels and comparisons to what you're dealing with right now. But on July 4th, you said to me, hey, I'll communicate with you, but I may not because I might be going away. So I didn't hear from you on July 4th. I didn't hear from you the next day, which was Sunday. So Saturday's July 4th. Sunday I didn't hear from you. No, I didn't. I figured, okay, I learned a long time ago, unless I know all the variables, any conclusion I draw is probably wrong. So I'm like, I can't figure this out because it could be anything. You could be staying extra time with your son up in North Carolina. You could have, anything could happen. You could fall, slip, break your hip. I mean, anything could happen. You could have won the lottery. Who knows? I mean, you could have been abducted by space aliens. And then I found it interesting and a little bit off that you hadn't called, but it was the 4th of July weekend. So I tried you on Monday, left a message. You called me on Tuesday, and that's when you said, I lost one of my sons, and I didn't really understand what you said. And I'm like, what does that mean? Because sometimes I have a lot of customers and people I talk to, they call everybody their son, you know, and I'm like, well, Edie, I'm not really sure what that means. So I kind of asked you to explain, and you started telling me about rock climbing or cliffs and jumping into a river. And I'm like, Edie, I'm not really I'm saying to myself, Edie, I'm not really following this. What do you mean? And you said he dove in and they haven't found him yet. I'm like, Edie, are you saying that your son might be drowned or maybe hurt or maybe something? And that's when I looked it up on the internet. And Edie-raether, your son Tory, is in there, and they're talking about the story of them trying to find him. And here it is now. Today is July 21st, and they still haven't found the body. And you're going to do the eulogy.
They did find him a week later. Yep.
Oh, okay. They did find. I did not see that. Okay.
Yeah, and it's really hard, Peter, because he wasn't just my son. He was my best friend. When I lost all my money, I'm addicted. I'm on a 3-mile island peninsula. I'm addicted to the space. I could care less about that's why I wasn't that depressed. You look at the bright side. I got a great view. I got this. I don't have a house. I don't have a flushing toilet. But I looked at what I did have, but he was there for me. If you want another good story, what we did, I had no money, and Lake Norman is near Charlotte. His property is not cheap here, okay? Anyway, what we did is, I didn't know. And this is a lesson for your listeners, my listeners too. And that is that if you know what you want, the why, and you know why you want it, I had a reason. I can't live off water. Then the how will always show up. And I knew that. I didn't think it would take 15 months. But here is how we bought. I mean, it's worth a couple million. And I had nothing. And so when people come here, I have vacation rentals here, Peter, and people say, oh, I've always wanted a place like this. And then I'll say, well, do you have $100 in your bank account? And they'll say, of course I have $100 in my bank account. And I'll say, well, I didn't when I got it. Okay. I want people to know how we can rise above. And so you know how we bought it? I bought it on credit cards. What we did, because Tory is such a good friend, he has good friends. That's just how the world works, right? If you are, then you get. And so anyway, one of his friends, Lou Mang, and I'm saying something good, had a perfect credit score. And we made him the CFO of my LLC. And we, in minutes, we got, maybe hours. But you can't, if a bank knows that you're contacting 7 other banks, they'll close you down. So we got all this money in a short period of time, like 12 hours or something. It paid for the house to get done. And before the interest was due, we had a HELOC. And now you know the rest of the story. And then I put in one apartment, and I thought, hell's bells, this pays for half the mortgage. I put in another apartment. I thought, it's pays for the mortgage. I put in the third one. And so, I think for all of us, we have to know that sometimes, and this was never part of the plan, things just evolve, when you have a belief system, when you never, ever, ever quit. And, but he was there for me, right. I think that's the point I'm making. He was lifeboat material. Yeah. And that's what we need.
He's there for a lot of people. He's there for a lot of people. And, as I read the story and I learn more about his life, we want to make sure we keep this going, meaning his memory alive as well. And this is going to be part of that whole story. So I just wanted to let our Building Fortunes Radio listening audience and everybody else that's listening in on the Edie-raether-radio-show that this is going on literally as we speak. So do you mind telling us is there a ceremony or?
Yeah, and I'm surprised I'm doing this well, Peter, because I'm doing this with you, and I knew it wasn't, that we'd have a second chance. I'm doing a test run, but because I've been speaking for 60 years, I know once I had like 103, 104 temp, and I still got a standing ovation. I think I'm so programmed that when the camera rolls, so to speak, I rise to the occasion. And I think that's something the listeners need to know, that if you have that expectation, because, there were 3-4 times today that I lost it. I just bawl. I'll work, and then I'll have one thought and I fall apart. And I'm doing really well, and I'm rising to the occasion. I did not know, because I've never had a challenge like this. But, I think we all have that ability to overcome, and because I have to, the show must go on. But what was the question you asked? Because I think I got off on you.
No, I wanted to know when the ceremony was.
Okay. If you live in Wisconsin and that area, it's going to be August 8th up at the Peninsula State Park. And they can contact me because we're a very inclusive, open family. And if anybody feels that they want to be there, I want them to be there. And then in Charlotte, it will be, I think it's Saturday the 22nd at the River Run Country Club in Davidson, North Carolina, which is between Charlotte and where I am. Yep. And again, I've been on Nextdoor, and there are hundreds of people praying there. If people are so inclined, then follow your gut. You know what I mean? You want to be a part of it. Yep. And I think the best way we can honor his legacy is, to live with his kind of spirit and challenge and caring and compassion. And, he was always a strategic thinker. I remember he's married to a very lovely, attractive woman. Everybody always thinks she's Julia Roberts, and she does look a lot like her. And but I remember when he was in his early 20s or something, and he was considering. I remember saying, well, do you think it's the right one and stuff? And he said, well, I think she'll be a good breeder. And I thought, that is so interesting. And if she weren't as attractive as she is, I probably wouldn't even say this. But that is, I think life was like a chess game to him. What was his next move? What would be best for his kids? What school would be? How do you get the right person in the right seat and the right bus going the right direction? And I know that all my nieces and nephews have said he was such a mentor. So if you weren't his child, you were mentored by him. You really were. So he was already thinking beyond, she's nice to look at, but I think she'd be a good breeder, and she is very compassionate. The kids are great, so he was right. But, anybody is welcome.
Well, I'll make sure that we put this in the show notes of all the shows leading up to that event. So for anybody that wants to be able to go there or send some prayers or do whatever they want to do to make a difference in the world. And I really appreciate you do. It's our first radio show. Me and you have had, many phone calls together, but it's our first radio show, and maybe the first time anybody's listening to you as well. And it's tragic that we have to talk about the Tory situation, because obviously it would be much better if those 3 seconds didn't happen. But they did, and you're dealing with it, and people are hearing how you deal with it live, and it's nice to hear, meaning that you're normal too. That hey, there could be any moment. When my dad died, I cried for 6 months, at least every day, and it was just kind of like anything could trigger it. So I realized the triggers, and I kind of said, hey, I gotta manage my way through this. I want to remember, but I gotta manage my way through this because it can't fall apart. So
Peter, I think you said something and this is what the book is all about as well. And by the way, all the proceeds for the book are going to Wings for Wishes to make a difference in children. So you're not only going to be serving yourself well. It's 320 pages. I got carried away. I started thinking 138 would be a good number. So you're getting more bang for your buck, but every buck goes to serve children. So you're not only serving, I'm serving you, but you're serving to make a difference in a child's life, because I will provide them with one of the programs called I Believe I Can Fly. But what you're saying is important, because that is, even though there's no reverse, there is no bouncing back, there's no bouncing forward. Those are words I use in my talk. Every moment we have a choice on how we respond to an event or a reality. Hopefully it's not losing a child. It is, I think everybody, I've always looked at everyone who has, is it's got to be the worst nightmare. And it is. But we all have a choice on how we respond to the event. I can't change the event, but I get to choose. My book is all about, and not only my book, all my talks are about conscious choice. That we get to choose how we respond to that event, how we can make a difference, not only in our own lives, but in the lives of others. And we always get that choice. That has not been taken away.
That's an amazing message.
Yeah, how I move forward is my choice. What were you going to say, Peter?
Well, we're going to document this on more of our radio shows, but I really appreciate who you are and the casual conversation that we have about a real-life situation that could happen to anybody and might have happened to other people as well that are listening in. Right. Or, gosh forbid, it happens in the future to somebody. You know, we all don't know. I mean, the bottom line is those split-second decisions that sometimes change the world or our world. So I want to say thanks for being here. You have a great book. It's called The 3-Second Neuroshift. I'll make sure there's links to this. It's available all over the place, including on Edie-raether.com.
And that is the best place to get it. It really is.
Good.
Because there the proceeds go to the kids. And,
right,
and,
exactly.
I want to add one more thing, Peter. Everybody talks about time heals. And I always look at things a little differently, you know that. Time doesn't heal because healing means repair. It's fixing it. If I get a scratch, if I scratch my skin and it heals, 2 weeks later, my skin looks normal, right?
Right.
Time doesn't heal in a case like this. What it does is time gives us the space to rewire our brains, to adapt, to cope, to change our behaviors, to choose our responses, and to move forward. That's what it does. But nothing will ever be the same. So if you look at healing as, making whole again, but we do adapt. We do, there's always an empty spot, but we do adapt, but only by choice. There are some people that choose not to, consciously or subconsciously, and those are things I can help with. And then as we meet again in our series or whatever, we can get into different parts of the book because what the book does, Peter, it takes over. It continues where the secret left off. The secret was prime at its time, but with neuroscience, we know more now. So, some people will say manifestation didn't work for me. I will tell you what you were maybe not. It's not like you were doing it wrong, but what you weren't doing to take you to the next level. So we'll get into why goal setting. Goals are not bad. They're just not enough. If goal setting was enough, why would people have the same New Year's resolutions year after year after year?
Right.
Obviously, we need more. And that is what, my speaking, my books talk about, on how we can take things so that it does work for you, how we can change our beliefs, our identity at the core. Because you can have all the goals you want, but if, that's why people lose weight and gain it back. Why do they gain it back? Because they didn't shift their identity. So it all comes down to making that neuroshift. And then I do, I'm kind of known as the dopamine diva. And motivation, as much as I may call myself a motivational speaker because that's what people search, no, it's overrated. Motivating is, kind of manipulating you to do something you may not want to do. It's when you're the right person in the right seat on the right bus, nobody has to motivate you. It's internal drive. And then we're going to talk about dopamine, how dopamine is the only real addiction. It's behind everything. And that is the internal engine that motivates us. We don't have to push ourselves. It just happens when we get clear and in alignment with our values, our beliefs, our identity, our goals. So we've got a lot to cover in the following sessions.
Yes. Yeah, great information for those people listening in. My name is Peter Mingils. Her name is Edie-raether, and Edie is E-D-I-E. Raether is R-A-E-T-H-E-R. and you go to Edie-raether.com to buy the book and look at the other things that Edie has to offer. And I'll share with you, for those people listening in, this is going to be a treat. You're going to love the future series of radio shows for sure, and you'll certainly enjoy the book. You'll be making a difference in the world. And Edie, I want to say thanks for all of the things that you're doing and the way you're responding and reacting to everything that is happening. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we're a part of it. So we'll see everybody next time on Building Fortunes Radio.
Thanks for tuning in. You've just finished listening to the Edie-raether Radio Show on Building Fortunes Radio and the Humongous Radio Network. We hope today's program challenged the way you think, gave you practical ideas you can use, and inspired you to create positive change in your work and life. Edie-raether has spent more than 5 decades helping people and organizations rewire old patterns, unlock greater potential, and turn insight into action. As a keynote speaker, best-selling author, behavioral strategist, and creator of Neuroshift, Edie is changing the way the world thinks, one mind at a time. Visit Edie-raether.com. That's EDIERAETHER.com to explore her books, speaking programs, training resources, and her newest book, The 3-Second Neuroshift. On behalf of Edie-raether, Peter Mingils, and everyone at Building Fortunes Radio and the Humongous Radio Network, thank you for listening. You can hear the Edie-raether Radio Show on Building Fortunes Radio, Amazon Music, Audible, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other major podcast platforms. Until next time, remember, change your thinking, change your choices, and change your world.